Hello again. Okay, our piece is out of the pickle now. It's actually the next day. Time flies when you're having fun. I was going to leave a step along the bottom of the base piece here, but as I filed it away, I decided that I didn't like that. And one of the things that's happened, I don't know if you can tell on camera here, but some of the solder has actually wicked into my saw marks. This is the first time I've made this type of ring. It's a new experience, so I have adapted and overcome. I didn't like the way that was looking, so I decided to go ahead and file everything flush and carry the serrations from the bottom to the top. In other words, carry the serrations all the way to the top piece and the bottom base of this foundation piece. The other thing that I went ahead and did off camera is I drilled a hole in my stones bezel so that when I finish serrating this, I'll be able to solder these two pieces together. I intend to do some engraving on the top. I don't like to leave any surface unadorned in some way, either by doing some type of overlay or some type of stamping, or anyway, this is going to have some engraving on it. So we'll get into a little bit of engraving momentarily. But what I'd like to do now is finish these serrations, bring it around to the other side. I really like the way this is looking compared to, especially now that I've had some solder wick up into those lines. But anyway, adapt and overcome. You can't always let a little setback stop you in your tracks. So just using the serrated bezel indexing tool and dropping into a clean cut that doesn't have any solder wicked into it, using it as my first place to begin and carrying it on from there. I can go as deep as I like now that the bezel is soldered onto the top and the bottom pieces, because I could literally saw all the way through, which might be a neat effect, but I'm not going to do that because I don't want to take the time to do that while we're filming. It takes me forever to upload videos to YouTube, so I try and keep them short and try and break them into multiple parts if they're not that short. And I have a feeling this video is going to run long. We have moved over to the engraving bench now, and I'm using a square grater it's actually the Lindsay grind, which is the 116 degree universal Lindsay grind. I like that tool geometry quite a bit, and It's just very versatile. First thing I'm going to do is engrave a border around the perimeter of the oval. Lost the audio here for some reason. I'm not sure what was going on, but I will get it back here in just a minute. I think my microphone came unplugged while I was engraving, or maybe I pulled it loose on something. But anyway, I apologize. We'll get back to the regular scheduled programming in a second. Now I'm going to switch over to a flat graver, and I think I'll engrave a rope edge. And I may need a wider graver than that, which I just happen to have. Okay, this rope edge is pretty attractive border that takes some time to execute, but it's a good way to add a lot of flash to an otherwise pretty plain surface. These little facets will catch a lot of light. All I'm doing is just kind of scooping out like you would scoop ice cream, and I'm twisting the graver as I scoop through it. That results in a rope looking edge.
There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Now I'm just going to use a scribe and try and work out. I'm not really scratching the metal, I'm just kind of burnishing lines to work out how I want the engraving to be laid out. I don't have to engrave this all the way to the center because the stone's going to be there. I'm just going to kind of dash line out the approximate location of the stone, and that way I can keep in mind the dimensions of the stone as I'm laying out the engraving. So I'm going to just speed this process up. I doubt that you'll be able to see the scribe lines very well anyway.
You You've got to put your body. You've got to put your body. You've got to put your body.
That should be sufficient to get me rolling. I'm going to move back to the universal point. And I'm just engraving some leaf elements. Now I need to commit to the stone placement before I paint myself into too many corners here. I believe I'm going to go with this. Very scientific. Kind of like throwing a dart at a map blindfolded. All right, that's a good start. see what it looks like with the stone on. A lot less plain than it did. I like it. Okay, let's do some more soldering. This ring shank that we're working on now is going to be 3 pieces of triangular wire. I believe this is 10 gauge triangular wire. And there will be 2 pieces that are 63 millimeter long. I'm gonna shoot for a 7.5 for the size of this ring. And then there will be a center piece that will make the ring shank wider, because the ring's a pretty big, it has a lot of mass on the surface. So I want the shank to not be terribly dainty looking by comparison. So we'll cut our outside pieces, and then I'll just eyeball how long to make the center piece. Then we'll solder those together and then form it into the shank. I'm guessing about 2/3 would look okay for the centerpiece. So what is that? 2/3 would be about 20, let's see, about 41 or 2. We'll go with 41. Now let's go with 40. And a little more light. Always go the wrong way. I've been making these little hearts for Valentine's Day, and they're so finicky. The little jump rings are so tiny. I'm glad to be on something more substantial. I'm gonna take a minute and straighten these really straight, and then I'll be back. Okay, I've laid out 10 small pieces of solder, and I've already fluxed. I just need to turn my gas on. And I'm just trying to heat everything evenly. Bring everything up to heat at the same time. I don't want to focus my flame in any one particular spot.
I'm beginning to accept my demon side to be right. I'm beginning to accept my demons right
And I'm using hard solder again,
to be here.
as is generally the case.
So get off
Whenever I can, I'll use hard solder.
Oklahoma City is not my hometown anymore.
And we're starting to flow now.
I am here to destroy.
Very nice.
Beginning to believe that life is short.
We'll allow our ring shank to cool off for a minute or so and drop it in the pickle. Clean it up and begin shaping the shank to our liking. To begin shaping the ring, I'm going to use these forming pliers. I have mixed feelings about these pliers. I'm not sure who makes these, but I've had good results and I've had poor results. My concern is because I have these points of the triangle against the metal here that I might deform the points of this triangle wire. And I know that I'm going to have to anneal several times to get a good result, but this is a good start, I believe.
Hold on the uptick in Oklahoma City. Hold on my uptick in Oklahoma City. Well, I'm on the uptick in Oklahoma City. I'm home in Oklahoma City. There's a place that I'm gonna be from for the rest of my life. There's a place that I'm gonna be from for the rest of my life. Yeah, Oklahoma's home.
Keeping up with the paper, the fire burns forever. Couldn't split the wood. The X was dope. From the start to
Okay, now I have annealed one last time, and I'm going to spread out the outer parts of this shank about 15, 20 degrees. And what I'm looking for here is just a consistent and equal angle on the two sides. I think it's going to polish up and look beautiful. So let's go downstairs. Gonna change belts, get something a little more aggressive to start with.
desolate coast knows no ocean. They're picking out cherries. Country young, hard to bury.
Okay, some assembly required when making a ring like this. Applying a little flux, hopefully just where I need it. And this time I'll be using medium solder. And I'm going to place it gingerly in position. I'm going to try and heat both pieces evenly. They have roughly the same mass as far as the amount of silver that's involved. Just trying to reposition my solder as it bounces around a little bit. I took great care in positioning this, and I'm holding it down with slight pressure with the third hand. You can't see it, but I have a rubber band pulling down on my third hand to give it a little downward pressure. And the solder's about to flow. Well, it looks like we got a good solder all the way around. I'm happy with that. Now I believe I'll let it cool just a minute first. I don't want any discoloration. Okay, we have one more soldering operation to do, and our ring will be assembled. Okay. I don't know if you can hear it, but there's still some water from when I quenched it earlier inside that cavity. Probably could have used a little more solder when I was tanning that, but I would rather have too little than too much. It's difficult to clean up when that solder gets where it's not supposed to be. Okay, we'll let this cool, then begin the long process of polishing, which I will probably skip most of. I believe what I'll do first is tumble it and then give it a good polish on the buffing wheel. And the last thing will be to come back and set the stone, which I'll do on camera. It is finally time to set the stone. And I've checked the fit, looks to be snug. So I'm just going to push the stone in. That couldn't have gone much better. And for this I'm going to use a little brass punch and a chasing hammer. Because of the height of this ring and this top bezel, it has a tendency to want to move on me inside the fixture. So I'm going to fire up my foot pedal air graver, and this way I can hold on, keep it from turning. and push these serrations over. Another great use of engraving tools. Smoke them if you got them, you know. And that job is done. I had fun, I hope you did too. And I hope that you will take a moment and subscribe. Show me a little love with that thumbs up. And I'll see your bright and shiny face in the next video.